Good afternoon and welcome to Politics and the Pulpit here on your hometown station, the show where we talk about the two things that no one wants to talk about: politics and religion. We are just less than 24 hours from our nation's 248th birthday. And if you live in Southern California, you are feeling the heat. It is definitely a warm one, and it's going to get increasingly warm over the next few days. So be careful out there as you enjoy the parade tomorrow morning here in Santa Clarita. 9 a.m. is when it starts, and KHTS, of course, will be doing live coverage of that, and I think they'll also be doing live via Facebook as well. And then also many people in the community, the Guardians, Freedom's Way Baptist Church, Lighthouse Christian Academy, and other dignitaries, of course, will be a part of the festivities tomorrow. Let me also remind you, a good service announcement here. There are no fireworks allowed in Santa Clarita. We are in high fire danger right now, as it's 103 degrees currently in Newhall, and it's supposed to get up to 111 by Friday and Saturday. So we'll see how that works out. But listen, it's hot. And so make sure you stay hydrated out there. Make sure you keep those dogs and kids out of cars when you leave them. It's unfortunate that I have to remind you of that. Couple of things as we look towards next Wednesday's show. I have a big announcement that I'm going to make. In fact, I'm going to make a big endorsement next Wednesday. So I would encourage you to listen in to Politics in the Pulpit next Wednesday at 2 o'clock. As I will be giving my endorsement for a seat on the Hart School Board. So encourage you to listen in to that endorsement. In just a few moments, we're going to be joined on the line with Congressman Mike Garcia. Of course, Congressman Garcia has been representing this district now for the last 4 years plus. It was originally the 25th Congressional District. Now it's the 27th Congressional District. And so we'll be asking the Congressman some very pertinent questions that are in the news, definitely in reference to last Thursday's debate. So we're going to stand by here and wait for the Congressman to call in. Lord willing, that'll be here in the next couple of minutes. Obviously, the news is breaking and has been breaking all morning. Originally, there was debate whether or not Biden was mulling the possibility of actually stepping down from the presidency. And then within about an hour or so after that news broke, the administration came back and said Biden is all in, and is going to be the nominee all the way until November 5th. There were talks of 25 congressional Democrats signing some sort of paper or whatever that was, saying we demand that Joe Biden step down. I mean, it's been rough the last week or so for the Biden administration. And you know what? What's interesting? I don't know if you've noticed this. The Trump of 2016 and the Trump of 2020 would be jumping all over this. In other words, the Democrats are already buried, but it seems like Trump is being very disciplined here. And so I'm actually quite impressed. I don't know who's got a hold of him. Maybe it just comes with age. I don't know. But he has been very, very disciplined. I believe we do have the congressman on the line. It is Congressman Mike Garcia representing the 27th Congressional District right here. Congressman, welcome to Politics and the Pulpit.
Hey, Pastor. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Are you enjoying this heat?
Loving the heat. I like the heat. Better. This is why we pay the high taxes and all the regulation here in California, so we enjoy the heat even in the winter time.
As I was driving down the freeway today to get to the studio, I saw those big signs on the freeway, and it kept warning me about extreme heat. And I thought to myself, I live in Southern California. We get extreme heat every summer.
Yep, we pay for it, but we enjoy it.
We do.
It's worth it. As Chris Rock would say, even the air conditioners need air conditioners today. So
Absolutely. Well, obviously, you're going to be partaking in tomorrow's parade here in the Santa Clarita Valley, I'm assuming, sir?
Yeah.
And we're going to be on a float, going to be doing your congressional hand wave and all that kind of stuff, and kissing babies
That's
and
right.
what have you.
Yep, Rebecca and I will be walking with the family, and I like walking and being able to shake everyone's hands, and little Jed will be on his electric bike, so it should be a good time. And we'll have a float of volunteers as well, and a lot of folks handing out flags and just loving on the country and taking pride in the 248th birthday of this beautiful country. It feels like we're going through a midlife crisis right now, but we'll get through this and prosper once again here, hopefully very soon.
Well, let me say before we get into the line of questioning this afternoon, thank you for your service, Congressman, not only, of course, as Congressman, but, of course, as someone who is part of our armed forces. And I know that it's not Veterans Day or Memorial Day, because obviously if you're Memorial Day, you'd be in the grave. But it's not Veterans Day. But hey, we're thankful. We're thankful for your service, sir. Here we are, almost a week away from the debate last week. I watched it. You and I texted back during that debate, and I think you and I can both agree it was disastrous for President Joe Biden. What do you make of all of the calamity in the wake of this disastrous debate performance from last Thursday?
It's tough to tell where this is going. I was talking to a reporter earlier. She said this is all snowballing very quickly, and I said, yeah, but I don't know what side of the mountain it's going down. I don't, we don't know the outcome of what's going to happen here. And I would say it was a bad night for President Joe Biden. It was a bad night for presidential candidate Joe Biden. But as a human being, it may have been a service to the human being Joe Biden, and that now hopefully the folks around him will stop subjecting him to what is effectively one of the most egregious forms of elderly abuse. And for Joe Biden and his inner circle to continue to push this guy, not only in a job, but in a responsibility that's still treatment to a president and a presidential candidate, with the realization that this presidential candidate cannot win. And effectively they're surrendering the White House. Now, I don't know what plan B or C would be. There's governors, there's, Kamala Harris, and, I think we should be watchful, mindful of and watching exactly what's going on here. But this isn't necessarily a positive thing for conservatives. The fallout of this is yet to be determined, and this could lead to another nominee that may not be as easy to beat as presidential candidate Joe Biden is.
If you're just tuning into Hometown Station, you're listening to Politics in the Pulpit. We have Congressman Mike Garcia on the line. One of the things that I mentioned at the top of the hour, Mike, before you called in, was I was actually quite surprised by the discipline not only of Trump during the debate last Thursday, more discipline than, of course, 2016 or 2020, but I'm also quite surprised by the fact that he's not jumping on Biden's grave in the last couple of days since that debate. He's been pretty subdued. What say you about that?
Well, a lot of us were saying this before the debate. The absolute worst thing President Trump could have done was to, effectively himself commit elderly abuse on the national stage during a debate, right? So he was magnanimous. He was focused on the policies. When they got distracted by little silly things like, golfing handicaps and all that, he did it in a playful manner, but didn't beat the old man over the head with it.
Yeah.
And the reason is, he's not dumb. President Trump is very savvy when it comes to these things. But ultimately, he wants to run against Joe Biden. And, in the wake of that, what we realized was that now every American knows what we've been saying for the last 3 years, which is this is a commander-in-chief in the form of Joe Biden who should not have been there on day one. This challenge was there from the beginning, but now 100% of the American public realizes it. So there is no need to spike the football in the wake of something like this. There's no upside to bragging about how poorly he did. Now, I think one of the sad parts is that the really poor performance by Biden did actually mask a very solid performance by presidential candidate Trump, which he was focused on the policies, and he's right on the policies. But unfortunately, the key takeaway and the talk of the town in the wake of the debate is just how poorly Biden did. So we should, as conservatives, be supportive of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris all the way up until the time we vote at this point. And we should hope that they stay at the top of the ticket. And when that happens, President Trump definitely wins. We definitely get the Senate back, and we definitely get the majority, keep the majority in the House of Representatives.
And I completely agree with you, sir. You said something interesting that I think I want to highlight briefly. You said that the media is finally saying what you and I have seen and what most Americans have seen the last 2 or 3 years, and that is the gradual decline of President Joe Biden. And again, as a human, we can take our partisanship out of this, right, Mike? And look at a man and say, whether he's Democrat or Republican, this is a gentleman that needs to be retired and enjoy the enjoy the beaches of Delaware, until the Lord takes him. But the fact is the media complicit? Obviously, they have been, or is it just media malpractice? Because obviously, we have seen with our eyes and heard with our ears the decline of this man. And the media, until last Thursday, seemed to suggest that we are all deceived.
Yeah. Well, the strategy and the tactics of the far left has been to try to gaslight the American people on all things, right? They called the Afghanistan debacle a logistical success. The administration did, and then the media echoed that. They basically have taken every crisis that this administration has created and subjected the nation to, and has tried to make it sound like it was climate change, or it was a migration problem that's leading to the border crisis, or that it was Republicans that voted against a certain bill. And so the strategy is to effectively gaslight the American people, and the tactics are basically within these public forums to lie to the American people and to use the media as sort of a fourth branch of government and a tool to do that. And what happened was you had on live TV without an audience, with muted microphones in plain sight, the current president of the United States unable to hide the fact that he is not capable of holding office anymore.
Yeah.
And so when you realize that if my strategy is to gaslight the American people, and I'm no longer able to gaslight them on this Joe Biden issue, I have to come up with a plan B.
Yeah.
And this is now why you're seeing mainstream media participate in what is, again, effectively them pivoting to try to just win. They don't actually care about Joe Biden. They want to just win, and they want to just make sure that President Trump does not become president again. And that's why they were running on Trump is a bad man. He's lying to you, when in fact they're the ones lying. They're the ones trying to gaslight the American voters into thinking that this administration has been successful.
Yeah.
But you can't hide the fact that President Joe Biden needs medical help right now.
Yeah.
He doesn't need electoral help.
No, I completely agree. Real quickly, on Monday, the Supreme Court ruled that presidents, plural, have immunity when engaged in official acts. And, of course, that was a huge blow to Jack Smith and some of the other trials against the President Trump. In your opinion, Congressman, are the court cases against President Trump crumbling before our very eyes?
Yeah, I think they were on very
thin ice
foundations to begin with,
yeah.
Right? So this is just eroding that foundation even more. Now, the Supreme Court decision does cut both ways, because I don't think President Trump needed the immunity to protect him. He just needed a fair justice system and a court that was objective. And this will prevent us from holding people accountable in the future for future presidents and vice presidents in the executive branch that we know have done something wrong, and we have the evidence to show that. So this can be used to protect a Democrat president, or just as much as it protects President Trump. And what it did was inoculate President Trump from the weaponization of the Department of Justice, which is very real under this Biden administration. But it does weaken overall the ability to hold the executive branch accountable for actual malfeasance, which is not what was happening, within the Trump cases, of course.
Absolutely.
But, we'll see. It's a Supreme Court. You've got to. They're an umpire calling balls and strikes, and we've got to have respect for that ruling.
Completely agree. Now let's kind of, if I could, I want to prophesy something, and I'm not a prophet, obviously. So I'm using that tongue-in-cheek a little bit. Let's just say that Biden stays in, and it's Biden and Trump all the way till November 5th. And let's just say the stars align and President Trump wins electorally, let's say somewhere north of 310. And let's say that he actually ekes out the popular vote by 2-3 points. Not only that, the House increases their majority, and the Senate expands into the Republican hands. How robust and how pedal to the metal should the Republicans be when it comes to their agenda for the next couple years?
Well, let me define the agenda. First of all, the agenda needs to prioritize unscrewing all of the policy disasters of the Biden administration. We need to secure the border. We need to regain legitimacy on the global stage, bring to an end the wars in the Middle East, Ukraine, reestablish our dominance on the global stage so that China stops flexing its muscles against us. We need to cut spending. So the bottom line is that the House of Representatives has passed pretty much every legislative bill that we need to fix these problems. We just need the executive branch to execute them and sign them into law, and obviously we need the Senate to do the same. So in that scenario, which is very likely that we get the White House, very likely that we get the Senate, and I think it's 60-40 that we keep the majority in the House right now, and our seat is obviously one of those important races. But we have everything that we need. We have all the tools in the toolkit. We have all of the policies in a can. We have all the bills in a can ready to go. And most of the damage that this current administration has caused can be undone by the executive branch without changing the laws. The reality is that Biden has gone out of his way to ignore the Supreme Court, to ignore the Constitution, and to actually break the laws when it comes to things like the open border and forgiving student debt.
We're coming to a hard break there, Congressman. How can folks help you and contribute to your campaign?
Yeah, appreciate that. ElectMikeGarcia.com, ElectMikeGarcia.com. We need donations. We need folks to knock on doors and make phone calls for us. And I hope everyone has a good 4th of July, and we'll see you in the parade tomorrow.
I'll see you, sir. Thanks for calling in today. You're listening to Politics in the Pulpit. We'll catch you back on the other side of the break. All right, we're back here for our second segment here on the bottom of the hour with Politics and the Pulpits, the show where we talk about the two things that no one wants to talk about, religion and politics. We do that very openly and very proudly here on this show. This is your holy host, the Bishop of Santa Clarita, Pastor Jerry Cook. If you are interested in visiting one of our church services, I'd encourage you to go to freedomswaybaptistchurch.org and check us out online. Read all you can about us. We actually have a statement of faith, folks, so you know exactly what we believe biblically before you ever step into our sanctuary. A lot of churches, unfortunately, are kind of getting thinner and thinner when it comes to their statements of faith. Not us. We want you guys to not be surprised when you walk in. Also, we just had Congressman Mike Garcia on. We will have him back on in just a few weeks. Let me also mention that next Wednesday, I think that is July 10th, if I'm not mistaken, board operator. Can you check and see if that is July the 10th real quick? Because I got a big announcement. And we've got a big election here on November 5th for our Hart School Board. And I'll be making a big endorsement for one of those individuals next Wednesday. So I encourage you to listen in. Well, as the Congressman and I were talking, obviously tomorrow is our 248th birthday here in the United States of America. And what I thought would be good is if I kind of walked us through the document that separated us and listed out or enumerated the reasons why we wanted to separate from the United Kingdom, Great Britain. And that document, of course, is the Declaration of Independence. Now, I'm going to read the majority of it. I'm not going to get into all the grievances. Obviously, there's plenty of those, and you can get a transcript of that online and read that for yourself. I might go through a couple of them, but I want to read just the main text of the Declaration of Independence, and I want to make some comments along the way, because we are in this battle of worldviews, right? We have the what I call the biblical worldview, which is not a worldview, it is the worldview. And then, of course, you have the godless worldview, or the humanist worldview, that wants to divorce God and the Bible from every facet of our lives and to put it, in buildings never to be let out. And the leftists would have us to believe that the founders of our country were predominantly deistic, which means that they believed in an impersonal God, if you will. If I could use the metaphor or the illustration of the watchmaker, the deist viewed God as like a big watchmaker, right? He wound up the clock and then he stepped away and let everything wind down. And he doesn't have any personal interaction with the creation. As a Christian, I don't believe that. I believe that God is a personal God. That's why he sent his son, Jesus Christ, into the world to die for sinners. That is a personal God. And you can have a personal relationship with him. And I believe that of the 55 signers of the Declaration of Independence, over 90% of them were avowed and open Bible Christians. Were they exactly like me on every point? No. But were they like me on all the main points? Yes. And so I think that's important for you to know. And if these founders are defined as the left would have us define them, which is they were kind of godless and they believed in separation of church and state and all the things that the left would have us to believe, then wouldn't you think that that would find its way into this very key document called the Declaration of Independence? I just want to read some of the words from this. This, of course, was July the 4th, 1776. And I'm going to read this, and I'll stop and make some salient points along the way. Quote, "The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America," right? Not 50, 13. And then here it goes. "When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation." So here in this opening salvo or preamble, if you will, they are saying this declaration is going to tell you why we believe we need to dissolve the political bands which have connected these 13 colonies to Britain, and why now we need those bands to be separate. And I want you to notice that they are very unequivocal and very open about the laws of nature and of nature's God. And by the way, God is capitalized, right? This is not a pagan deity like lowercase g. This is not gods, plural, as in pluralism. They were a monotheistic people, our founders. They believed in one God, just as Deuteronomy chapter 6 and other passages make it clear. So, right in the opening statement of the Declaration of Independence, they cite the laws of nature and nature's God. Now, some people on the left would go and crow and say, well, they didn't define who that God is. Well, they actually are in just a few more verses here of the Declaration, which we'll get to. But the fact that God is even in it, shouldn't that give a bit of pause to those who are always angling for our founders to be a bunch of deistic, godless people? Here's what else the Declaration of Independence says. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, a minute ago, they said the laws of nature and nature's God. Now they're telling us who that God is. He's our Creator. By the way, Creator is in capital, it's a capital C, folks. Why are they saying that? Because they're letting you know that nature's God is our Creator. Not every religion on the face of the earth believes that their, quote, deity created them. All right? So it's very clear that our founders were not evolutionary thinkers. They weren't subject or did not have, they weren't impeded by the thoughts of Darwin and evolutionary thinking, because obviously the Declaration of Independence predated the descent of man and origin of species by almost 100 years. But they defined the Creator. And they say, to bolster what they mean by laws of nature, they say that we're endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. Rights, that is, that cannot be given or taken away. Rights that are from nature, or if you will, from the God of nature. He gives us those rights. They are not given to us by a benevolent government. No. Those rights are given to us, instilled in us as a people, as an individual, by the God of nature, our Creator. This is why it's so important that we make the distinction between God and government sometimes. Government and the Bill of Rights, specifically the Bill of Rights, are enumerated to keep those unalienable rights where they need to be, which is God-given rights. And they cite 3 of those unalienable rights, and those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They go on to say that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Now, what are the founders saying here with this verse? That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends. In other words, if a government ever comes in and tries to strip you of rights that they never gave you, if you will, those unalienable rights, then that government, by definition, has become destructive of these ends, the words of the Declaration, and it is incumbent and it is the right of the people to abolish or alter it. You see, we get frightened about that, but that's the wording of the Declaration, folks. The government, which has been instituted by God, is only there to guarantee and to secure your rights, but those rights are not benevolent gifts from them. They're gifts from God. They're gifts from God. And then they go on to say, prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. In other words, we just don't you know, we just don't change government or abolish it or alter it just on a whim. There has to be major cause. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. So here they were about to lay in to all the usurpations, man, that's a mouthful right there, and abuses by England. And here are the reasons why it is our right and our duty, they say, to throw off such a government and to provide new guards for our security. And then they conclude by saying, such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states, referring to the 13 colonies. To prove this, they say, let facts be submitted to a candid world. And then, for the next page and a half, we've got all these facts that are submitted by our founders as to why they feel they need to dissolve the bonds between those 13 colonies and Great Britain. Some of those things are, he has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, and so on and so forth. Another one, he has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. And he goes on to say, in fact, the last thing he says here, he has excited domestic insurrections amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. And this is how they conclude the Declaration of Independence. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world. I wonder who that is, folks. Who's the Supreme Judge? By the way, Supreme is capital S, Judge is capital J. They're making their appeal to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, due in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right, ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, I wonder who that is. By the way, providence, capital P. And then they conclude, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Signed by 55 men representing the various colonies. Folks, What happened to separation of church and state there? They refer to the laws of nature, nature's God. I think it's imperative as we approach our nation's 248th birthday that we understand our nation is still and will always be under God. When we return here for our final segment, I'm going to give you my thoughts on how Biden is going to thread the needle between now and November 5th. We'll catch you in a second here on your hometown station. All right, we're back here for our final segment of Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station, KHTS AM 1220 and FM 98.1, right here in the heart of the Santa Clarita Valley. I'm looking at my thread here, and there's a gentleman that said, I'm not going to talk about the guy from Valencia smacking a kid in the face in Pacoima. I guess I don't know about that. Maybe somebody ought to enlighten me on that, or maybe that's an inside joke. Who knows? Well, obviously, the Biden administration is in huge cleanup on aisle 11 since last Thursday's debate. As Congressman Garcia and I were talking, one of the things that struck my thinking last Thursday was just how cruel the Democratic Party is to just trot him out there the way they have. And it doesn't matter how physically unable he is to do the job. All they care about is power and the acquisition of it and the maintaining of it. And that's because the Democratic Party, by and large, is godless. They have no respect of an outside authority other than themselves. And it's sad. And so as on a human-to-human level, I can say, kind of taking my partisanship out of this, it's sad what they are doing to Biden. On the other hand, Biden must be a glutton for punishment because he has repeatedly said he's going to stay in for the long haul. Now, news has been shifting back and forth about the African American vote in the last several weeks, and polls have shown that President Donald J. Trump has gained considerably with the African American community in the last few years compared to 2020 and definitely from 2016. Depending on the poll that you read, he's got anywhere between 18 to 25% of the African American vote. And who knows, maybe that's lowballed. Maybe it's more than that. And if that is the case, folks, if he gets 20 to 23%, if he gets 18 to 20% of the African American vote, that is enough to call this. Now, I'm not saying get relaxed about this. However, there's talk about switching Biden out. Congressman Garcia and I, we talked offline, and he has an idea of who they might switch Biden out with. All I can tell you is this. Number one, it's really complicated to switch out the current incumbent. All the money that the Biden administration has raised is only allowed to go to the administration, and the heir apparent would be Kamala Harris, obviously. So there would have to be just an immense amount of donors that are going to come in to at least, write the amount of checks to at least the same amount that President Trump has at the moment, which is a lot of money, by the way. So let's say Congressman Garcia and others are right, and they are going to switch out Biden. They cannot afford to overlook Kamala, which unfortunately many within the party structure want them to do. There's talk of Gavin Newsom, the feckless governor of our state here in California. He looks like Bruce Wayne and talks like Batman, but the fact is, our state is going to hell in a handbasket, and it would be so easy for the RNC and for President Trump to highlight just how bad a record Gavin Newsom has, and we definitely don't want to see that nationalized across our glorious United States of America. So, should Biden jump over or look over Kamala Harris and bring in a Gavin Newsom, Can you imagine just how much more the numbers in the African American community would tank should he do that? Pasty white Joe Biden looks and glosses over African American Kamala Harris in order to pick pasty white Gavin Newsom or pasty white Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan, or pasty white you name it. Folks, it would absolutely erode even further any support from the African American community that Joe Biden has at the moment. The numbers in 2020 were like he had about 87% to 90% of African American support. Right now it's somewhere between 68 and 73. That is quite an erosion, quite a turnaround. And so they're in a conundrum, folks. They can't overlook Kamala. There's the money issue that they've raised. It's going to go naturally to the heir apparent, which would be Kamala. But yet the powers that be are all wringing their hands that word salad Kamala isn't up to the job. I'll also make just a statement here. I only think the reason why Biden chose Kamala, she was a DEI choice. It was basically just insurance. That's unfortunate, but that's how that party treats race. That is how that party treats race. They didn't choose Kamala because she could actually be the president of the United States. They chose Kamala because she fit a box that they could check. And unfortunately, there's a whole bunch of people that are gullible in the United States of America that go, isn't that nice? He checked the box. That type of genuflecting is starting to dissipate within the African American community, especially among men and the young men of the African American community. I pray and hope, and I say this on the eve of our nation's 248th birthday. I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to be a Christian in America. I'm proud to be a Christian who lives in one of the bluest states in the Union, California. And folks, I hope and pray that there are enough people in all 50 states to make a good, godly, righteous, common sense decision when they vote on November 5th. And I hope not just for the federal elections. Yes, we need a good conservative at the top of the ticket, but we need that top of the ticket to win so decisively and so large that that has down ballot effects all the way to the water board and school boards. We need conservatives to come out in droves. And folks, for those of you that are worried about cheating, if we come out in big numbers, it's harder for them to cheat, folks. We have got to come out in big numbers. You pastors, if you're listening, talk to your congregations. Make sure you have voter drives. Get folks, make sure that they're going to be voting. And happy birthday to the United States of America, 248 years. Don't forget, next Wednesday, big endorsement. Catch us back here on your hometown station.